Welcome back, Divas. We have a great show for you this week. My two pals, Jason Delgado, Capitol reporter for Spectrum News, and Forrest Saunders, EW Scripps Capitol reporter Roundtable this week. Yes, reporter Roundtable with these two guys. They're in the know. We got DOGE. We got a little governor's race heating up. We've got the legislative session on tap. So please join us, Reporter Roundtable. You won't want to miss it.
Trump is an interesting character, and I wouldn't put it past him to see how his candidate goes. And, if Donalds doesn't perform or, starts to shrink, maybe you'll see what Trump does, which is he'll stop talking about that person.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
Divas, we are back in the Speakeasy with two handsome fellas. You wish you were in the room with us. Yes, you do, but you're not. Jason Delgado. These guys are regulars now on the show. Jason Delgado, Capitol reporter for Spectrum News.
That's me. Good to see you, Dara.
Nice to see you, Jason. And Forrest Saunders, also Capitol reporter with EW Scripps.
Yes, and despite what my producers write every time they email me, it's Capitol with an OL, not an AL.
That's an important distinction.
It's the most important distinction, I think.
Well, the Capitol with an O is the building.
Yes. You think of it as the rotunda, right? That's how I always remember it, is that the O is the big rotunda on top of the Capitol.
They just don't know.
No, they don't know.
Is it the Capitol Press Corps with an A or an O?
I believe that is an A.
Let me take a look. I've got it right here.
How does that...
That's an O, folks.
Okay.
Capitol.
Thank you, Jason, for clearing up that mystery.
I made a capital grammatical offense. I'm so sorry.
You're forgiven.
We have a lot to cover this week. This is coming out right before the 2025 legislative session begins next week. We're recording this on a Thursday. I do my questions. I like to do them early in the week and get started on them. And every week for the past couple of weeks, by the time I'm actually recording, so much more stuff has happened. So just a caveat, like we've had to do lately, that we are recording this Thursday morning, and who the heck knows?
Sure.
By Sunday, right?
Yeah, the next GOP civil war will break out on Friday.
So thanks for giving us a segue into everything that we have a lot to talk about. We've got the 2026 governor's race. We've got DOGE, Florida style. Is it DOGE or DOGE?
DOGE, I believe.
I would go with DOGE, the latter.
That's what I say.
I didn't see another D in there, so I'm going to go with DOGE as well.
DOGE, okay. And we've got the governor amping up some of what he's doing on the immigration front. So let's start with Byron Donalds entering the 2026 governor's race, because all of this, I was thinking about this morning as I was laying in bed, is this legislative session, I always like to say, like, it's never about what it appears to be about on the surface, a lot of these bills. But this legislative session is so many layers, 2026 races, vacant cabinet seat,
mandate from voters in the November election.
Yeah. It's so a lot going on. Yeah. We've started out a couple weeks ago, just as a reminder, with the legislature kind of asserting its authority over the governor, right, on immigration, his plans and his trying to keep him from having complete control over that arena.
Yes.
So the Byron Donalds got the nod from President Trump this week to saying, he's the guy, he'd make a great governor. There have been rumors of Casey DeSantis running for governor. We also know that we believe that Wilton Simpson, the agriculture commissioner, who is not like the best bud of the governor, also is out there, name being considered for GOP nomination. So what does that mean? Byron Donalds got in it. The governor took no time trying to beat him up.
No, I mean, he was actually, he beat him up, or at least gave a maybe a snide comment. I don't know what you want to.
Snippy.
It was snippy. Yeah, I don't want to say it was snide. It was definitely snippy. I mean, it was chilly. Comment on Monday basically was asked, what do you think about Trump endorsing
after
him?
The Trump tweet and
Yes.
before
the announcement.
Byron Donalds actually entered. I'm sorry.
And I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically called him a do-nothing. He said, 4 years in the state
I happen
legislature.
to have it right here.
Yeah, play it up.
The reality is we've achieved victories in Florida. We need to start achieving those victories up there. So I think people look at it and say, you got a guy like Byron. He just hasn't been a part of any of the victories that we've had over the left over these last years. He's just not been a part of it. He's been in other states campaigning, doing that, and that's fine. But
Ouch.
deliver results up there.
Yeah, I need a scarf.
Yeah, well, look,
It's chilly. Chilly.
and that was like, the ham and cheese of that sandwich. But, in its entirety, I think by my count, we're talking 2 minutes. He addressed the whole Byron Donalds thing. Not a single kind word from start to finish. I thought in real time, at some point he'll say, a decent gentleman, a friend. No.
There wasn't a nice word in the mix. Fairly unprovoked, he started talking about Casey DeSantis.
Yes. And he said how, like, who was it that said that she would have done better than him? Or
he said,
was it Rush?
Well, yes,
it was Rush.
The Rush anecdote as well. But he said, I won by a historic margin.
Yeah.
And she would do better than me.
That's it. That's what he said.
And previously, he has said that she has zero interest. But now he's out there basically defending her without being really provoked to do so.
It's very interesting. So what do we think she's doing? They've promoted her role with this Hope Florida thing. So they've created a whole office. She has an office in the plaza level inside the governor's office already, but they've created an office of this Hope Florida office for her, right?
Yeah.
So elevating her somewhat. Is she a real candidate, or is this just a way for the DeSantises to keep get campaign contributions for whatever might be down the road for him? Or is he trolling Trump land? What does this mean about the relationship between the governor and the president?
No, I'm looking at you, Forrest.
No, buddy. All right. Well, I would say outwardly, if you were to just look at what's happening from a spectator's perspective, you would say it looks like she's gearing up, right? It does look like it. She's been very forward in her mission for Hope Florida. She has been very active and in front of the camera. She was with the governor during his presidential bid. She was a very vocal advocate for his policies. DeSantis has said regularly, I want someone to pick up the handle who can continue the things that we've done here. We want good conservative candidates. Casey's very much a conservative person. I would just say outwardly it looks like she's running. But, from the conversations I've had with people, they keep telling me, nah, she's not there yet or she's not interested. But, that was months ago and dynamics change. And maybe DeSantis hasn't found the heir apparent to take over for him, right? The person that he wants to endorse. So that might force her hand if there's nobody else. Because, there was talk about maybe Ashley Moody getting into the governor's race.
Right.
Well, now she's a U.S. senator. And so that position is no longer open to her.
Keep in mind, too, that we have an open lieutenant governor's seat, and he could make his, would he? So he said he's not going to appoint anyone to that post or to the chief financial officer post until after the legislative session. So do we have like an audition for the next 2 months for those two seats?
I think it's already happening. I think the politicians that definitely want one of those positions.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Blaze is like Blaze Ngolia, Senator Ngolia.
Every bill he can think of.
Everything. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely a behind-the-scenes campaign happening to try and get attention from the governor and show that you are a loyal supporter of his cause.
This is something new that I haven't seen before with governors, this choosing your successor to this extent, with this degree of like wanting to create a new cabinet and a new governor, that is usually they're done. You know, they support their party candidate. Or
sometimes they'll even stay out of it. You know,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Kim Reynolds back in Iowa usually had it. You know, before her it was Terry Branstad, but they had a tradition where they just wouldn't get involved in the primary. They'd let the primary play out.
Here too,
Yeah.
we had that too. I mean, Governor DeSantis has broken a lot of norms. You know, disruptors or whatever. So we'll see about that.
I think it's the university system is another interesting kind of symptom of that. Just the fact that now, I mean, if you look at Jeanette Nunez at FIU, we can go down the line, Ben Sass at UF, but these candidates
Adam Hasner at FIU.
They're people who...
I mean, FAU, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not questioning their credentials. I am saying that these are people with a clear allyship to the governor, people whose resumes are more rooted in conservative politics than, say, academia.
Correct.
And I'm not saying one's better, one's worse. That's not my job. But I mean, the link between the executive office of the governor and the leadership at universities is essentially undeniable.
Think about that for just a second. You know, long after DeSantis is gone, you might have some of these people that he appointed in different positions. You know, the sort of ripple of DeSantis would echo through Florida government and state boards and different positions for years.
Courts.
Mm-hmm.
He has the majority of Supreme Court justices have been appointed by him. Mm-hmm. And there was an ideological litmus test for them that he, you know, wanted people. I mean, he has said it. This isn't Dara Cam saying it. Mm-hmm. He has said, I want people who reflect, you know, the way I think about law and the justice system. I mean, it's very interesting. He has, without question, I think he is the strongest executive leader that Florida has seen. And I agree with you that we will be seeing the, did you say tentacles?
I said the ripples.
Okay,
the ripples
I
of
think
DeSantis.
we'll be seeing it, feeling his muscle long after he's not in that, you know, living in the governor's mansion, whether or not Casey DeSantis gets elected.
Sure. Well, then let me ask you this for the good of the group. If the governor's influence is indeed waning and he is a lame duck governor, if you believe that, and yet First Lady Casey DeSantis jumps into the race, does that fortifies the governor's influence grip over the legislature? Given the fact that there's now a DeSantis candidate in line with, you know, notoriety. She's a talented person, former TV news person, you know. She can talk the talk.
She can.
Does that help the governor at all in his final 2 years?
That's a good question. I think what it does is it divides the legislature. It divides voters, Republicans especially, more so than they have been. And what we see is that showdown between the Trump heir
that's
and
what
the
I was
DeSantis
just going
heir.
to say. Yes, because the legislature and the vast majority of legislators now have hitched their wagons to President Trump. Mm-hmm. And if President Trump says Byron Donalds is the guy, what do? Do you go with Byron Donalds, or do you go with the, you know, you've got stuff in the budget you want to get in. Yeah. You want your bills to get signed into law, or do you just say, you know, okay, like I got to hold on for 2 more years, and then what?
That veto pen looms large.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So I think you're right to ask the question. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that, I mean, let's look at what House Speaker Daniel Perez is doing with these veto budget override. Mm-hmm. They're looking at them. The Senate has already said they're not planning on doing anything with them, but maybe that could change. It can be a negotiating
It's
tool.
A flex. You know, it's definitely a flex.
And now with the hemp committees, work group or whatever it's called, special work group or something, you know, so these are differences or exploring things that the governor did. It is a flex. Mm-hmm. I don't see them rolling over necessarily just because Casey DeSantis gets in the race, whether she does or not.
No, I think it'll bring more of that tension to the surface, if anything, because it's put up or shut up time. Choose a side. you know, and it'll be very clear who's on which side. But, you know, the legislature was happy to buck Trump at the beginning of the 2024 cycle. You know, had the majority of Republican lawmakers that sided with DeSantis and backed him and endorsed him. Now, you had defections as that went along and people finding themselves either disillusioned by the governor or thinking that maybe Trump was a better choice. But, you know, they were happy to do it back then, maybe before Trump established his power, his firm footing as an authority within the Republican Party again. I mean, as he was sort of ramping up and getting ready to be
Trump is
candidate.
a completely different animal now. He is a monster. I had Joe Gruters on the other day, and it's Trump 100%.
Yeah.
And for these legislators too, and they were under a lot of intense pressure to support, to endorse DeSantis, and those that didn't, you know, felt like they were retaliated against, whether they were or not. Again, I'm not saying, but
I don't know. But the state senator Randy Fine would love to tell you about how he felt like he was being marginalized and discriminated against.
Yeah. Well, he's heading to Congress, so
yeah.
And not to throw us for a loop here.
Okay, no, throw us for
Let's
a
throw
loop.
it for a little loop here. I don't know who it is, but whoever it is, when that outsider joins the race, that's going to make it twice as interesting as it is today. It's still early, but whether it's John Morgan, who, by the way, you know, is forming that independent party.
Yep. Matt Gaetz is still a possibility too.
Right.
We didn't
Matt
mention
Gaetz
his
is
name
still
earlier.
A possibility.
Do you remember Ken Griffin?
Yeah, I remember.
Citadel CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spent hundreds of millions in Florida weighing in.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, Ken Griffin.
Watch Bernie Sanders come down here and make a
If a
run.
guy like that with pockets that deep joins the race, it's not unprecedented.
No, it's not.
You know, I know what John Morgan is doing, and I understand it intellectually. I'm not sure that a third-party candidate can win in Florida in 2 years. What do you think?
No, I don't think the state's ready for that. I don't think that the maybe the disillusionment that you would need from the Republican Party is there to make that happen, right? I mean, Republicans feel like they're in lockstep, at least with their goals and their ideals
They
under Trump.
own everything.
Exactly. So I
mean, they're in charge of everything.
It would be so hard for a major fracture to happen, given that they are so in line with
I
what
think
they're
it hurts
trying to
Democrats
accomplish.
more than it hurts Republicans, what John Morgan is planning on doing.
I would think so too, but I'll counter with this. There's no one on God's green earth that has more face ID, public recognition,
Oh, that's
than
true.
America's largest, you know, this
Size
Hey,
matters.
Hey, so I was
Jason.
just going to say,
matters.
size matters.
That guy's
Size matters.
on public buses, on the highways.
Yeah,
He's got a heck of a TikTok following.
I mean, that's a hell.
yeah. He's
a hell of an
something.
advantage.
I agree, and not just in Florida.
Nationally.
Yeah, yeah.
Size matters.
All right, so we'll tune in a couple of months and see how that goes.
Do we quickly mention Democrats? Just
I was just going to
all's
say,
fair?
let's mention Democrats.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting how that race is potentially shaping up. I mean, I talked to Chair Fried a couple of days ago about what, you know, it was just after Donalds had announced, and I said, what are you going to do? Are you going to put forward a slate of good quality candidates? And she said, that's what we're doing. We're recruiting right now. We're trying to find the right person to be the nominee. She affirmed that she was not interested in the job.
Yeah, I've heard her say that. Right?
And you know, it's always important to double check. Sometimes the dynamics change.
Keep
Yeah,
checking.
exactly.
Right.
And people pop in.
Right.
But it sounds like, you know, the names that I keep hearing are Jason Pizzo, the Senate Minority Leader.
Correct.
Obviously. I hear that maybe House Minority Leader Fentress Driscoll might be interested.
Hearing her name too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard Chev Jones, state
Me
senator in
too.
South Florida. And then, you know, there's always a chance of a wild card or someone from Florida politics past popping up again. But, you know, one
That's
name
worked so well for the Democrats over the past 20 years.
So they're not only just in a fight for relevance, they're also going to, you know, put their best foot forward, they hope, in 26 to try and make this happen.
I had Senator Pizzo on not long ago, and he told me of the state. He was very much trying to differentiate the Senate Democrats from the state Democrats.
Yeah.
Said they have no money, no momentum, and no message.
Wow, that's pretty cold.
That's what he said on the show.
I would also say that Pizzo, if you look at some of the policies that he's proposing, like his E-Verify bill, some of the comments that he's making in debates, it's very obvious to me that the senator is running towards the center.
I don't that he's running towards the center.
Well, he would say that he's already there has been.
I've watched him pretty closely, and I think that's not. I think that's true. I don't think it's a pivot for him.
No, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think if anything, maybe a slight pivot, but no, you're right. He's got a legacy of being a moderate.
Yeah, and he really has also a legacy of trying or of kind of being a broker. Trying to work to negotiate deals. I don't know that Republicans really need the Democrats for anything. There's this talk about the veto overrides. Are they going to do? I don't know if that's going to ever happen.
Have you heard him say his what I kind of consider his line for this legislative session and last, which is forget about pride of authorship? He says that often. And what he basically means is as long as you don't care if your name's on the bill, you can get things done.
Because he says, I've done everything that's happened was his idea. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but yes, you want good stuff to get done, then you have to not have a D next to it, I guess.
Right.
So what happens to Wilton Simpson in this scenario of the Byron Donalds? Or do you think that this could be that they throw out that Trump, they throw out Byron Donalds this early? This is quite early in a gubernatorial election season. We're more than a year from really.
Oh, absolutely. It felt like a statement. It felt like I'm trying to clear the field, and it was strategic.
Is he, or is he dangling him out there to see how he does over the next few months, and then maybe...
Trump is an interesting character, and I wouldn't put it past him to see how his candidate goes. And, if Donalds doesn't perform or, starts to shrink, maybe you'll see what Trump does, which is he'll stop talking about that person.
So what does Simpson do in this and now?
I took Casey DeSantis. Your turn, buddy.
Look, I think ag's a sweet gig. Truly.
Stick around for another 4 years.
Yeah. You just moved in.
Settle in.
Let the smoke clear.
Yeah.
No reason to go charging the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this is his wheelhouse.
That's what I would think, too. That's what I would think.
Yeah. Get a couple more stickers on gas pumps.
With respects to him, it's a field that he's got a deep background in, so it must be, at least in some way, a passion project of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, why go roll up your sleeves?
Why break an egg when you don't have to?
Why break an egg? That was good.
Wait a minute. Oh, no. I got to redo that.
Much better.
You earned that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did. And we'll be right back with Jason Delgado and Forrest Saunders. And now, the news in haikus. This week's haiku, provided by my colleague Jim Turner of the News Service of Florida. Thank you, Jim Turner. And read especially for you by Jason Delgado, Spectrum News Capitol reporter.
My friends, I leave you with the inspired words of Jim Turner. Eyes turn to tally. Condos, insurance, budget. Gavel in day is here.
That's the news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back for Reporter Roundtable with Jason Delgado and Forrest Saunders. Let's talk about DOGE.
Ooh, it's all the rage.
It's all the rage.
It's a great segue. Yeah, I mean...
I didn't segue at all. I could have gone through the CFO thing. We'll do that. I know.
What about that DOGE thing? Yeah.
Give me some DOGE.
So, I mean, there are competing efforts, right? Like, the DeSantis task force is dissimilar from the bills that have been proposed in the legislature. So Tiffany Esposito, Representative Esposito down in South Florida, she has a policy that would sunset administrative rules. And she was calling it a Florida DOGE. Basically, they would review administrative rules and sunset what they thought was outdated. And then they would do cost-benefit analysis for any crafting of new administrative rules. And they would give the legislature more oversight and power to control any new rules that were crafted. So she said, this is cutting back red tape. This is getting rid of waste. We can be more efficient. She wanted to call it Florida DOGE. One of our comms people mentioned that maybe they should call it Floge, which I'm not. That sounds
Floge.
like.
I like that.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like something I get from a pharmaceutical company.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds a little bit.
It sounds like a nasal spray. Floge.
Floge.
Cut through that red tape with Floge.
Okay, but the governor is taking a different approach.
Yeah, he's got a task force. Now, did you cover that? Did you do a Florida DOGE or a DOGE DeSantis story?
Tell us about it.
DeSantis story. Well, what would you like to know about it? Clearly, it's inspired, from the Trump administration and, of course, Mr. Elon Musk.
Part of it is ferreting out any leftover DEI initiatives or people on the payrolls or college courses that
universities.
I mean, it seems pretty far-reaching, actually.
And we'll see what they ultimately make of it. But are you surprised?
No.
It didn't catch me by surprise, and I think we'll see to what degree they take this. It's interesting.
But he's been governor for 6 years. I mean, what's been holding him back to DOGE, himself?
And I think it is worth noting. We're one of the leanest state governments in the nation, at least in terms of manpower.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like.
It's interesting
how much more you cut, at least from that end of the pig.
I was talking to Senator Pizzo not too long ago about efficiency in government. And we weren't specifically talking about DOGE and DOGE efforts, but he was saying that, with regard to condos and condo reform, he thought that DBPR wasn't the best group to sort of enforce that. Yeah, he's told me that
too,
right?
Yeah. But he thinks there needs to be a special board, I think.
Yeah. But what he was telling me is that we've maxed out on state agencies, and we can't have any more state agencies under our Constitution. We can't create a whole nother level of internal, executive branch government. So DBPR or some other group will have to handle it and maybe create a state board or something to oversee it. But the reason I bring that up is because you're exactly right. You're talking about what Democrats have turned into a talking point, which is Republicans have been in control of this state for 30 years.
Yeah.
And if you've got a problem with a glut of government, who else would you blame? But, I guess the other side of that would be DeSantis saying, hey, I've been here for 6 and I want to streamline government and we're already doing it. He said before we even get to the task force, he wanted to get rid of, I think, 70 boards or something like that. He had mentioned a number like that. And they were already planning on cutting a bunch of jobs in this upcoming budget.
Yeah, he had that as part of his budget.
So the task force is going to be on top of all of that. And it's sort of like Oprah, right? Giving out like gifts at one of her shows, which is like you get an audit and you get an audit and you get an audit. And even local governments with this task force, which that blew my mind when he mentioned that, and getting legislation potentially passed to force compliance from those local governments, that they'd have to do the audits from this state board. And then what comes next is I would assume the local government doesn't have to make the cut, but you better be sure the state board is going to point to them every day and say, this is the glut we found, and try and shame them into doing it.
Shame them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not going to pretend to understand the legality, I should say.
The legalness. No, I like the legalness.
Of what that is. But that is a pretty dramatic step to target local governments. I
mean, they have in so many ways, though, right? That's not really
just the latest round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about the whole DOGE-ness, the DOGE concept of it all, is that in theory, I don't think anyone truly objects to it. In theory, the idea that, hey, it's healthy. Let's look at the books. Let's see where we could pinch a penny. But
that's not what it is.
Well, and that was my next point. I think from the Democrats I've spoken to, in theory, they understand. In practice is where things get wonky or downright scary, potentially. And so there's a trouble there in attacking DOGE in and of itself.
Right. The concept is a solid concept on paper. If you're a taxpayer and you're worried about affordability and you could potentially recoup some of the excess, it sounds great. But I think for Democrats, as you've mentioned, they're just wary of having Republicans use this as an excuse to go after things that
they don't like.
They don't like. Exactly.
Like the LGBTQ
ideological
support
things or
office
programs.
in a school
Right.
or at a college or women's studies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, where does it end? Who decides what's
waste?
right?
Yeah. Who says, oh, yeah, this is waste? Because that's very subjective. It's not objective. I mean, you know, one man's waste is another man's new couch.
Can you imagine?
That was a dig at Jason.
I figured.
I'm in a situation with my couch at the moment.
Still with the couch, or is this another
whole cycle,
one?
And realistically, now I'm not gonna solve it till after session.
Oh,
So I won't be having guests over.
Did you get a cover? Did you get a cover?
I got a couch cover.
Okay.
Then the new old couch I bought is now sitting in a warehouse in South Georgia, where I never want to look at it again.
Oh my gosh!
But you know, maybe I could afford a new couch if we get a Florida dividend from our DOGE efforts.
Oh, so we'll all get a check?
Maybe Trump floated it for the federal.
Yeah, it was
DOGE.
like $5,000, right, or something like that.
We'll see. You know, if you're pumping another $1 trillion into the economy, is probably not the most healthy thing for us.
People are panicking
right now.
about.
Oh no!
People are
That's not how
panicking
inflation
about the
works.
cuts, though. People are freaking out about the cuts.
And rightfully so.
You know, insulin
I
prices are
understandable.
going up for seniors.
Not to mention the Republicans in Congress just passed a cut of Medicaid.
Right.
The Medicare.
Medicare, the parks. We saw a big story in the Democrat the other day about the archaeologists are getting fired and people are getting, the VA is getting cut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think people think it's great until
it touches them.
they can't get a service that they need or a medication that they need or anyone to answer the phone when they need to talk to someone. I don't know.
It hasn't touched me. I can't speak to the frustration of others except for those that I've talked to. And they're really scared. There are people out there who are worried about their jobs. They're worried about their livelihoods. They're worried about, the infrastructure of the nation, because all of these policies, they do provide a service, even if it's, deemed to be wasteful. There are people that are benefiting from it. So I don't know what the future is going to be with regards to the federal efforts, and I certainly don't know what it's going to be like here on the state level either. But job cuts seem pretty much guaranteed, right? Like that's the whole point.
I think I just saw a report that came out today that said the national unemployment was higher than, or there were fewer jobs created or something. Whatever it was. Obviously, it made a huge impression on me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the governor, and then we'll go into the 2024 session, if that's okay.
I'm so excited.
I'm here for it.
What do we see with James Othmeyer now is the new attorney general, and he was the guest speaker at our recent 40 under 40 event, and oh my goodness,
you wouldn't know that,
gosh,
Forrest.
do we have one of our 40 under 40 sitting right here in the room with us?
Oh,
yes,
shucks.
we do. Jason Delgado.
What a night. What a night.
Really?
And what a great host, by the way, Dara. You were wonderful up there.
I didn't. You 40 under 40?
It's a cutthroat industry for us.
You're giving 50 over 50.
Stop. No.
Okay. Oh my goodness. These guys, they need to take their act on the road. No, because then we won't be able to get them in the speakeasy anymore.
True.
Okay, so James was the bulldog, did you see that look that James gave me when I was asking him a question before he left? I had two questions and I was just trying to make a joke. And he glared at me. I think he thought I was going to try to actually ask him a real question. I was just joking. Like, does it count if you cancel your Netflix subscription if you use your daughter's? And do books on I call them books on tape. Do audiobooks or ebooks count? Or does it have to be a print book? And he was saying it should be print unless you're driving, which kind of surprised me.
And for those of you who are lost in the sauce, the new attorney general has recommended people to, among other things, cancel your Netflix subscription.
For a year. Yeah.
But
as a way of detaching from screens, I guess, and interacting more
I get it for
IRL.
free through my cell plan. So,
oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm not going to turn down free service.
Okay, so to be perfectly honest, my daughter, I have a family plan and my daughter is on my plan. So there's no way I could cancel and get on my daughter's plan. So just to say,
An admirable goal,
I was being
nonetheless.
joking.
Though.
I was
No,
being,
yeah.
I was joking. I was trying to be funny.
I look at my screen time. It is frightening.
It is.
He's got a good point
He
in
does.
terms of.
Especially if you have young children.
Yeah,
He also advised people to have an hour of silence
Oh.
and to exercise every day.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I'm looking at
It's
my
the
screen
silence
time
part
right
that
now.
kills me.
Yeah. It's, I don't know.
I
mean,
can't say it's early, so I can't say too much about the new Attorney General other than congratulations.
No,
and
no,
I
my
like the new
question-
logo. Did you see the new logo?
Oh, yes, he did trot out a new seal.
I didn't
Yeah.
see the new logo.
It's got alligators on it.
You know you had to slap an alligator on
Of
there.
course.
Mhm.
But I wasn't going to ask about what he's going to do, but I was going to ask, as with Jason Whedon now taking the place
Mhm.
as chief of staff, do we think that we're going to see some shift in how that office is run, or do you think that it'll be pretty much keeping along the same lines?
I think every chief of staff will bring their own independent flair to things. Jason obviously proved himself to the DeSantis administration during his time running ACA. And I think that, for the most part, they are all about having people who are aligned with their goals and their message on staff. And so if, Chief of Staff Whedon is now in charge of that particular operation, he's very much a DeSantis disciple. You know what I mean? He's someone who's...
But he always has been.
Exactly. And so I wouldn't expect that we would see any major changes because this is an operation that arguably has been very successful in Florida.
Yeah.
So I would predict that they would stay the course. James was young. That was the interesting thing about James.
Yes, so young.
And exactly. And so he brought a youth and a vigor to that position. He pushed DeSantis, as I understand it, to be very aggressive on certain topics in concert with their comms team. And because of that, you saw DeSantis be very forward on a number of these big topics, including immigration, which was something that, Chief of Staff Uthmeyer, before he became AG, was part and parcel with the governor fighting to get their policy goals passed in this legislative package that they passed.
This immigration issue is so successful for Republicans.
Yeah.
Senator Rick Scott ran on that when he ran for governor the first time in Florida. That was a major plank of his campaign platform. Do we want to talk about the CFO appointments? Do we have any insight into that?
I know that, names like Senator Angoli have been floated as a DeSantis replacement. You've got Trump, who's picked Joe Gruters for the spot, Senator Gruters, both of them, interestingly, former presidents of the Florida GOP.
Yeah, chairman.
Yes, both the chairman. And so, who gets tapped? Again, I think this is that proxy war between DeSantis and Trump.
I agree.
On a different level. So,
you heard what Senator Gruters told me. It's like basically put anybody in there. I got Trump's backing. He's
going to steamroll in the election, right?
Like it won't matter,
right? And that
which I thought was interesting.
Well, and so
it didn't feel like just bravado either.
Let's ask that question, right? How much does the Trump endorsement matter in Florida when you've got the DeSantis endorsement?
Ask the Amendment 3 people,
right? Exactly, exactly that, right? So that was
the marijuana initiative that failed.
Mm-hmm. So. There's arguments, I think, on both sides that, politics and politicians are different than amendments and issues. And so you could make the case that it's a personality battle. And if Trump's on your side, that's the golden ticket. But, Trump has lost in primary candidates around the country. So is Florida different? Because you've got a very powerful figure in DeSantis still. I mean, he in a lot of Republican corridors still has a lot of sway.
I know. And you mentioned, is he a lame duck? I feel like rumors of his demise have been greatly exaggerated.
I would agree with that.
I don't really think he's a big loser. I don't see him as, does he have as much influence as he had before he entered the presidential race? No, definitely no. But does he? He still is a very, very powerful, and he's very popular in Florida.
Let me just a quick aside on that, because I think the microcosm of his strength, right? If you wanted to look at something that was telling about the overall big picture of how strong is DeSantis as we enter another legislative session, is the fight over immigration. Really, DeSantis, it was a compromise. There's no doubt about that. I mean, both sides got something that they wanted, but the fact that DeSantis got it done early, that was his biggest goal, right? He said, I want to do something before session. And he got it. He got it. And he got some of the big things that he wanted, like making illegal immigration a state crime, putting penalties in place for those that don't comply with immigration law, local governments and such. So he got a lot of those things done, and he did do it outside of session. And that wouldn't have happened if he didn't stand up and say, hey, I want to do a special session. So the fact that the legislature flexed its autonomy and said, no, we're not going to go with you on this, I think that's telling. That shows a sign of weakness. But in the end, the dude still got most of what he wanted. True. Including getting it done early.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it right there.
Well, and it was weeks. It was a battle. Weeks of effort and national news. Yeah. He pulled on every lever he had at his disposal.
Yes, he did.
To pressure that legislation.
Very pugnacious.
Yes. I mean, and the legislature is still able to come away and say, hey, we got our wins too.
And not a little bit of shaming involved either.
It got bitter. I mean, it was personal in a lot of cases.
I want to know, they're all like singing Kumbaya sort of, except I heard that the speaker left the press conference early. Did he?
I didn't see that. Did you?
Did you see that?
What I do know is that while that press conference was going, I was on the fourth floor, the rotunda, and the House Speaker exited the elevator, and I walked past him. Okay. And I remember thinking, it wrapped up early. Oh. So I'm not confirming that. I'm saying
I wasn't there. I wasn't even in the Capitol that day.
But I know while the press conference was ongoing, I had passed him.
Or maybe I was in the Capitol, but I was doing something else.
I was on deadline, so I was laser focused on getting the massage.
Actually, we know this. Yeah. Who was it? They said he had to leave early for a Valentine's Day dinner.
That's right.
Well, there you go.
That's what we were told.
Priorities. I like that.
Valentine's. Dang.
That's right.
Might have forgotten that.
It was also the anniversary of...
yes.
Yeah.
Parkland.
Yeah. I mean, we say anniversary. I don't mean to say the memorial.
I always remember to text Tony Montalto.
Yeah.
And remind him how important his work is following the death of his daughter.
Gina.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how
he's the one who represents the families.
Yes. And he works so tirelessly and selflessly.
Heartbreaking.
To try and strengthen the security at schools.
I'm a member of the Tallahassee Film Society. Shout out to Tallahassee Film Society. You too can join.
I would love.
Yeah, you should.
I'm a cinephile.
Okay, well, we are showing our movies at the IMAX now because our theater at the train station got destroyed by the tornado over in Railroad Square. So I don't know when we're going to be reopening there, but you can go on the weekends and I'll show you the website. Yeah. But every year we show the Oscar nominated short films and you can watch the documentaries, the live action and animated. So I went for the documentaries last weekend, and one of the short documentaries was by Sam. I can't remember her last name. I apologize. But she was one of the survivors of the shooting. So she was a student, and there was a lot of footage in there of Nicholas Cruz's the end of the trial, and the camera was on the faces of the families when the jury verdict on the death penalty was announced. Yeah. And it was just, these are people now that I know too, right? For the past 6 years or 7 years and Max Schachter just broken, some of these families were just totally, anyway, I should look up her name, and maybe I'll do that and mention it when we come back.
Please.
But anyway, so that was something coming out. You guys should be able to see. I don't know if they're going to rerun those next weekend, but highly recommend short film,
Sign me up.
nominated short films. All right. Okay, so here we go now. Back to the topic at hand. I guess before we move away from DOGE, what's on your DOGE list?
Oh, Lordy.
What a good question.
What is on my DOGE list? Well, for the sake of no dead air, Forrest, you want to have something off the...
I would say I need to cut eating out. I need to eat the stuff in my fridge.
Oh.
Yeah. I think my takeout budget is bloated and needs to be whittled down to maybe once or twice a week.
Okay.
Because right now I'm going to the kitchen and I'm looking at the fridge and going, pizza sounds good.
Really?
I'm a carbs boy.
Okay. Well, you're so thin, you wouldn't know it to look at you.
Oh. It's the anxiety.
See, I never order out. I rarely eat out. I'm a really picky eater, and I have type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
And so I'm on very no carbs and low carbs. And so my refrigerator is bursting full of vegetables, fresh vegetables. So just stop on over the Lafayette Park Bureau anytime you feel the
Vegetables would also be on my DOGE list.
Yes.
I'm going to trim those down.
I certainly eat out too much, but for the sake subscriptions.
Oh,
And I'll tell you a little story last night.
Thank you.
I was in bed and I knew we had this podcast. So I was like, let me hit the hay a little early. And then I found out that there's this DoorDash pass, which would eliminate the delivery fee, and it cuts down on the service fee. And then I'm taking classes over at FSU, so then I get a student discount, which makes my Dash Pass only $5 a month.
Right.
I'm like, that's too good of a deal to pass up.
There you go.
But in my heart of hearts, I know, Jason, what you don't need is another subscription.
how many subscriptions do you estimate you have?
Too many. I just know throughout the day, my bank account is always like, ding, ding. You know, it's $5.
Do you have one of those?
There.
I mean, aren't there apps that can tell you what your
get a fancy enough bank, it'll do it
subscriptions
for you.
are, and then you can.
Yeah.
Oh, but ignorance is so sweet. You know, it's.
Yeah, but then you go to the grocery store and you're going to buy something, and then you look in your account and you go, oh, that was a lot bigger before.
Oh, I know. And it's because, 3 times a day, some random subscription.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
You know-
Okay. For me,
Please.
I'm debating shoes.
Oh, how many? How many pairs?
How often?
Oh, I don't know.
Are we more than 50?
Not anymore, because after I broke my leg, I don't wear heels anymore. So
Oh my God.
yeah,
I got 6 pairs.
purses.
Purses.
Also, I'm a big purse person.
I got 1 bag. I got maybe 6 pairs of shoes. I'd say it's probably closer to 4.
You do not have 6 pairs of shoes.
I didn't believe that either.
No.
Really? I'm going to count them right
Let's
now.
audit you.
I got a pair on my feet right now.
Mhm.
I've got a pair of ulakais that I use for kayaking. I've got 2 pairs of dress shoes, one black, one brown, and another pair of Oxford brown shoes. There you go. I don't have any of those Crocs.
That is, I love me some Crocs. I have 3 pairs of Crocs, including my leopard print ones that I was wearing the last time you dissed Crocs.
I'm going to keep
Hey,
doing it.
Crocs, we need a
Me
sponsorship.
too. I've got 3 pairs of Crocs, and I probably have 6 pairs of shoes in my backseat alone. Yeah.
Okay, so what are going to be the top stories going into the 2025 session?
Oh man, I took subscriptions.
Of course. So, obviously, whether it's a story or not, that the relationship between Florida Republicans and the governor and each other's own wish list.
We're going to read, you know what? One of my ex-husbands accused me of being so busy reading between the lines that I didn't read the lines. And that's what the entire Capitol Press Corps is going to be doing every time one of these guys looks sideways at the other one, or shows up late or leaves early or doesn't, whatever.
It will be a story. I hope that we don't get too lost in the weeds, because I think that I was talking to Dr. Susan McManus, a professor emeritus at USF the other day, and one of the things she pointed out was these guys got to deliver. They just had a huge election in 24. Republicans won big. They got a spotlight on them. A lot of them are thinking about their political futures in 26. They trying to figure out where they want to go and what they want to do. So they're going to have to deliver in this session. She thinks it's going to be healthcare. She thinks it's going to be the economy. She thinks it's going to be immigration. And she really thinks that despite the antagonist attitude that the governor and the legislature have had, they're going to come together and get things done because they have to.
Like what on healthcare? I don't even know what they would do.
I think that's a parallel with affordability. I mean, she's looking at what's happening.
Oh, well, everything. It's all about, what are they going to do to make eggs cheaper?
Yeah.
Sure.
You've got the Waffle House coffee mug right here,
So
Jason.
good. I love them. Every Saturday.
I mean, didn't they add a 50-cent upcharge on eggs, I thought?
We're all struggling. Yeah, we're all struggling.
But I thought it was so interesting. Cracker Barrel was like, Waffle House is going up 50 cents, but we at Cracker Barrel recognize the importance of a moderate expense, and we will not be increasing our prices. Did you see
Really?
that?
No, but I respect that.
Yeah, you going to switch brands?
Absolutely not. Let me say this.
He gets a free unlimited coffee with your mug. Will you bring it in there with you?
No, this is just cool. It was a gift from someone.
It's awesome. I have envy. I have cup envy.
We don't have, I think, a flagship bill.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't see.
Yeah, I
big
don't
ones.
either.
In years past, we had a handful.
What about rural renaissance?
Yeah, the farm bill from Simpson and the rural renaissance bill from Albritton.
At the time of recording, I don't believe we've got the House Speaker's priority bill yet. And he's been very guarded about that, too.
Yeah.
I don't think he's, tell me if I'm wrong, that he's kind of let us in on what he's trying to
I mean,
accomplish.
when I had him on the podcast last year, and we're going to get him back soon, he mentioned doing something for people with disabilities, and families who care for those people, like his brother and his parents. Yeah. That's a big priority for him. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. If it means more money for the waiting list or more services or whatever.
And I think
I don't know.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to reframe this, because I do believe these are big and important bills, and we are seeing some of them, but they don't have the same Republican panache that they have had in the past, because DeSantis largely isn't driving the boat, right? He isn't saying get these things accomplished.
Well,
at
we've
least
been
as
really
much
on the cultural war issues for the past, several years. Yeah. The remaking higher education, remaking lower education, not lower, L-high, remaking the education system and, doing so. I think those things were huge and kind of what's left.
Right.
Really.
Right. And that's kind of where I think the Republican Party is. I mean, we've heard.
And we also went after, it's this culture war issue,
if I was an elected Republican and I said this, I'd get primaried out pretty quick. But truly, and to the credit of Republicans, for their own agenda, what more is there to deliver on some of these fronts?
Yeah.
On the culture war issue, I agree. I mean, people are tired of that.
It's practical issues now.
Republicans are tired of that. Yeah. Now it's all immigration. Yeah. And that has been really I'll tell you, and I do, like, the languaging about the immigration really does concern me. As if you know anybody who you've read the stories and you're writing the stories, I mean, it creates a unwelcoming atmosphere for people who look Hispanic or who are Hispanic or who look like they're from, the Middle East or wherever. Like, they don't look like.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think
fill in the blank.
Talking to people like Representative Anna Eskamani, she has real concerns about the slate of bills that were recently passed, because she says that you can't really enact some of these policies without racial profiling. You know, and her big fear is, we talked about during the war when it started in Israel. We talked about her fear. She had a lot of fear. She's from her family's from Iran. And she was worried about Islamophobia coming back with a resurgence. And now she thinks that there's a different version of that happening, which is, Hispanic Americans are going to be targeted. They're going to be, we've seen videos, right, of people being pulled over and threatened by people who were not actually ICE immigration enforcement officials. And she worries that it's going to exacerbate. And the people who are, not a WASP like myself are going to be targeted just because of the color of their skin, and because this climate has gotten so angry and aggressive, and you know, I'm not placing blame on anyone or party. It's just this is one of the things that happens from bad actors.
But they did it. You know, they did that in the special session. Is there more? Are we going to see more on the immigration front?
We are. There's another bill at least I know of that's going to come out. And, you know, E-Verify is something that I think there are a couple of versions out there to basically make it strict across the board. If you have employees, you got to do an E-Verify check for all of them. I know Senator Angolia has a bill that he is going to pitch that would also create a right of action for someone who is injured by an undocumented immigrant. They can then sue the business where they worked. So, you know, if they worked at a farm or if they worked in hospitality, whatever it was, they would be able to bring a lawsuit against that employer.
Okay. That's part of the company not doing the background checks and then the...
Yeah. He also pitched a bill just yesterday that would forbid non-citizens from contributing, working with politicians, campaigns, any of that.
Yeah, that's part of his, I think, package
his
to
election bill.
The how about you? Anything else coming up in this legislative session that you think?
No, I think, you know, obviously immigration is always going to be on the table. And, you know, the big question is there anything left to do in regards to property insurance? I don't know what the answer to that is, obviously. Condos, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I think that Senator Bradley told me that she wants to do something about these SIRS reports, these structural integrity reserve studies, to make it so that they have a form, like a uniform form that they have to use when they do these, because some of the...
They're inflating their costs.
They're inflating it. Yeah, they're adding it in.
I talked to Representative Porras the other day, Juan Carlos Porras, and he is a very interesting guy and very unafraid to speak his mind about Governor Ron DeSantis. But one of the things that he was talking to me about was this bill that Representative Lopez filed that would basically strip condos of citizens' property insurance if they do not comply with the previous standards of the condo bill. So basically tough love.
Yeah.
And the way he explained it to me was, this is a good thing because this means that we can ensure safety for our condo residents. But it comes at a time when people are literally getting priced out of their condos because they can't afford to pay into these pots. It is the
insurance, but we're also hearing that it's the insurance that's the real cost driver in the increased expenses for the condos. So I'm not sure that taking them out of citizens, you know, I guess that's...
Senator Bradley has some words about that on social media.
Yeah, she did.
She's like, "Are you kidding me? We're already at a tipping point with premiums,
right? And
you're going to strip them of insurance?"
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were saying insurance and
no.
Mazel tov.
No, I think kind of property insurance. I think we're going to see a lot of people have a hangover from a lot of these more culturally provocative bills. All that said, there's still a lot of pressing issues on the table, including property insurance. Will we see action on guns this year? Probably not, right? It seems Alberton is.
I'm going to give you one to watch.
Ooh, I'm tingly.
School start times.
Oh,
I've heard about this.
The repeal.
School start times.
Yeah.
It was, they hated it to begin with. The locals, big, small, didn't matter, rural, urban, didn't like it. And I'll go out on a limb and I'll say they're going to repeal that this year, and they'll leave it up to the school districts to decide.
That's Rep. Alvarez's bill, isn't it? I think Danny Alvarez.
I don't remember who the sponsor was, but Jen Bradley is carrying it in the Senate, the repeal this year. So I don't know.
Was that?
It's a little.
That was Linda, wasn't it?
Stuff people care about, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's something that directly impacts you every morning.
Yes. And your kids and their ability to participate in sports and their ability to come home and have an older sibling there when they get home from school.
Your commute, what time I could start my shift.
Yeah.
That's risky business when you start shifting.
Just saying. Anyways, all right. Let's wrap up with anything else you guys want to hit on before we...
I would just say when it comes to this session, affordability is going to have to be tackled in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know if there's going to be a big omnibus bill or a bunch of little bills. We heard from Albritton and Perez both saying that they want members to sort of drive the boat again in this session rather than the scripted nature that we've seen from Tallahassee in the past. So if that means that, some of these smaller piecemeal bills come together and make a big affordability session, yeah, maybe. But to Jason's point, I haven't seen any major, like live local acts or anything like that.
Oh, wait. What about doing away with property taxes?
Yeah, I mean,
how could we forget?
Is there was a study bill that was
Governor
proposed.
DeSantis's proposal.
Senator Martin has a study that would be conducted to see what the impact would be. But I don't know that there's any legislation out there. Of course, it would have to go with constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
But I just, that's okay. Listen, it's hard to say no to something like that when you're paying property taxes, right? Except for the fact that you're going to eat it on the other end.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I pay property taxes, and I'm pretty sure that my costs would go up elsewhere if that were to pass.
Well, you have to have a balanced budget,
right?
I
wouldn't mind having a higher homestead exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe Senator Ngoglia is it to raise the minimum or the maximum from $50,000 to $75,000?
Yeah.
I believe that's the only real tangible.
I think that's a good idea because that whatever it was a long time ago, and it's mostly I don't think it's $50,000 for most people. I think it's less than that. Anyways, I don't know.
And keep in mind, the governor said he does not want to raise sales tax.
No.
Right.
But you got to make up that money somewhere.
Right.
Yes.
And he says,
or
cut
you
the
don't.
glut.
Or you don't. You don't have to make up the money somewhere.
And
then you can service it.
Doge.
Yes, there you go,
We're back to Doge.
We are.
Yeah.
We did the weave and we came right back. I love you guys. All right. 2 important questions. What is your favorite snack in the Capitol during session?
That's a good one.
That's a great question.
Now, are we saying snack is something that is quick, or is it like any food?
Yeah.
Whatever. You define it.
I'm going to interpret that as the vending machine.
Okay.
You don't know about my little stash. Now I'm saying it.
Tell us more.
Is this a medical marijuana stash?
No, I bring in snacks for the press corps.
Oh, well, I have yet to receive
They're inside the Senate press gallery.
Okay. That's good to know.
The secret drawer.
I didn't even realize there were drawers.
I always said what we need more than anything
Mostly
else
chips.
Is like a little bodega right across the street. Someone with a window.
A truck. Just a little truck. It doesn't have to have it can be a pop-up.
I think
right?
To answer your question,
yes.
I love those bowls that you can get at Early's.
Oh, those are good. You get it with the jerk. I prefer the jerk.
Mango habanero.
What's in the bowls?
You can get rice, beans, little chicken. Then they put a sauce on top of it.
I'd go sleep for 2 days after that.
Oh, no, I do. I take a nap. It's a brief nap. I wake up with mango on my face.
Where do you nap? Whose office do you sleep in? Tell us where
I sleep under the chambers.
Out of the ladies' room on the 4th floor. It really pissed me off.
They had one. Actually, it's probably Jackson Peele's office. He has a couch.
Yes. Of which I've napped on. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to back in the day. Before he was in there. Okay, so
what's your favorite?
You like
snack?
the bowls?
Yeah.
I get these little. Well, I bring in chips for the rest of the people that I don't eat, and then I get these little individual packets of dry roasted nuts.
Okay.
So that's my big.
Plenty of nuts in that capital, am I right?
That's my big zany snack. Any special pre-session things or rituals or whatever that you do? Like, I know a lot of people that they order extra dog food or whatever, like sign up for automatic utility pay so you don't do like I used to do and come home and my power bill, lights were out.
I've been there.
One of the first sessions I covered maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing a live shot. I looked down and I noticed that my shoes look weird. And I recognized pretty quickly that all day I had been walking around with 2 different shoes on.
Because you have a black pair and a brown pair. And they're the same,
I mean, it was. I think it was 2 black pairs of shoes, but one was a dress shoe and one was like a boot. And I had been walking around like a crazy person all day. So you had been
up so late and out so late the night before that you were
not
just
had a chance
completely.
To sleep. Yep.
Wow.
In fact, it's somewhere on my Twitter feed. There's a picture of me in my 2 different shoes.
That's funny. Like I could see socks, but shoes.
Shoes takes talent.
Especially when you're not like having a closet with 1,000 pairs in there.
God help me.
How about you, Jason? Any special?
It's going to be my last true chance to clean. So I will spend the weekend cleaning my apartment like the health inspector was going to come and shut me down. Oh my gosh,
that's hilarious.
Because I'm just too exhausted, on the weekend during session, or frankly, just not interested.
Yeah.
So
you're not there enough to see it. You're really not there enough to see it, right? So just keep the toilets clean. That's all. All right. Well, mine is, I don't really have one. I used to have a special, I used to like to dress up for the first day and blah, blah, blah. Now I don't even think I'm going into the Capitol on the first day. I just do bring in the snacks. I like to be the lady who, I like to be the den mother of you guys in there. Keep people from passing out.
Was there a time in your 30s you ever thought that you were going to be the snack lady?
No, I never thought I'd be that lady. I have turned out to be that lady that I never thought I would be. But I am not yet the kid that the kids, I'm not yet the lady at the house that the kids point at and run past really fast. So.
How many cats do you own?
I have none.
Okay, then you're fine.
I just have Max. Anyways, all right. Thank you so much. It's always a treat with these guys, my 2 favorites. Jason Delgado, Spectrum News, Capitol reporter, and Forrest Saunders, EW Scripps. I don't know why I'm stumbling on this today, but I switched it up, and so I had... Anyways, my 2 guys, thank you for coming. We'll have you back again soon.
I'll see you Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.